Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Choice Hacking. I am Jen Clinehens, and today we're doing another email psychology breakdown. This time it is a welcome email from Grammarly. So you can see here are all the points we're going to cover. I'll leave this up for a second. You can take a screen grab if you'd like. This one was a little bit interesting. So I'm going to talk about some things I really liked about it and a lot of things actually I would change, which surprised me given how good Grammarly's marketing normally is. But once I scratched the surface on this email, it does have a lot of things that if it were me, I would change. So let's get started. First things first, let's take a look at the subject line. So I actually got the screen grab of this email from reallygoodemails.com. They're not an affiliate or an advertiser or anything like that, but they're a really good place to go if you want to take a look at some of these brand emails. And the subject line that they reported was get the most out of your Grammarly account. Now, this might seem okay on face value, but I think they've missed just the most low-hanging fruit. Why isn't this personalized? Why doesn't it say, get the most out of your Grammarly account, Jen? Or, hey, Jen, get the most out of your Grammarly account. We know that personalization in a subject line will increase open rates, and it seems like pretty low-hanging fruit. So I'm not quite sure why they haven't included that in this subject line. Next, let's go down and take a look at this headline visual. So it's pretty eye-catching. It's very on brand for Grammarly. I really like, the illustration style. It's good. But I would say at first glance, this visual doesn't really do a job. I would love to see them use an image that brings to life this headline. And to be honest, I think that's what they're getting at with this image, but it's not really apparent. It's not very clear at first glance. And I really doubt that people are going to spend the time to try to decode whatever this image is. They're going to move on. They're going to scan through the email and they're not going to pay too much attention to it. But if they could retool this image slightly to make it more about using Grammarly on your phone, on your desktop, on the go, things like that, it would make the proposition of this email much more clear and much more easy to understand. Let's move down the email now. So I'm in a section called Most Popular, and it might be a little bit small on the screen, so I'll just read it here. We've got two sections, Grammarly for Chrome, and it says, keep your writing clear and mistake-free when you're writing on websites like LinkedIn, Gmail, Google Docs, Evernote, Slack, and more. In this case, it says installed with a check mark, so the person who got this email already has this Chrome extension. And then the second section says the Grammarly editor. Compose and edit long-form writing in the Grammarly editor. You can set goals for your document to get tailored writing feedback. And then install with a little caret, which means obviously this person has not installed and used this yet. This is a good bit of social proof. When you're first onboarding to a new product, it can feel a little bit overwhelming when there's a lot of features, things, and components to download. But just saying something is the most popular, it's an easy shortcut to get people interested and say, well, if everybody else finds this interesting and helpful, then I should probably pay attention and download a few of these things. Now, I would say, though, this email in general could benefit from some more emotional, evocative language. So, using customer quotes, for example, to sort of punctuate or explain these features would be a nice way to use social proof with the added benefit of emotion and human connection. So, a good example might be, Grammarly for Chrome. And instead of having this long explanation, you could easily include a customer quote here that says something along the lines of, I love using Grammarly for Chrome because it keeps my writing clear and mistake free no matter where I am on the internet, whether it's LinkedIn, Google Docs, Evernote, or Slack. I always know that my writing is going to be clear and concise. Something like that. It brings a little bit of emotion. It is a little bit more evocative than just describing something. And I think if Grammarly adopted that point of view here, it would make a little bit more of a connection and be more meaningful to the people that got this email. And one of the obvious psychology principles at work here is social proof. We're more likely to trust or try something when other people already trust or try it. And they're using that here with the most popular, but I do think if they pulled in some customer verbatim or quotes to describe each one of these features, they could double down on the positive effects of social proof. Now we're going to move on to the second section. So obviously, the way that this is laid out, I couldn't get the long email in here and I wanted to get it like on one slide. I do like to do this for a couple of reasons. First, it's much easier to get as a one-pager PDF for you to download or screen cap or whatever you want to do with it. Easy to see it all in one place. Secondly, I think it gets us a little bit more focused on what are people actually going to see. And most people will not make it this far down an email unless they find it fascinating or really interesting. Now, this second section, just in case you can't see it, it says other great ways to use Grammarly. So just a few additional features and things you can use and download. In case you can't see what the second section says, the headline reads, other great ways to use Grammarly. The Grammarly keyboard is the first section. Writing well on your phone doesn't have to be a hassle. The Grammarly keyboard helps make sure every text and email is clear and typo-free and asks you to install. Next, you have Grammarly for Microsoft Office. I'm not going to read that one. And the last one, Grammarly for your desktop. So again, it's just talking about the different places you can use Grammarly, but you do have to, or they're asking you to install. So there is a call to action on each one of these. These headlines could be much more benefits driven. So instead of saying the Grammarly keyboard and giving you some dry explanation on what it is, I would love it if they could talk a little bit more about the benefits that I'm going to get or the reason why I should download something. So, a few examples I've just come up with here on the top of my head. It could be make your texts and emails clear and typo free, or just because you're on your phone doesn't mean you're any less professional. What I'm trying to do here is not only create something that's benefits driven, but tie it into the concept of this email and the headline, which says Grammarly works where you do. So, the implication is Grammarly works in a lot of places. So let's mold and shape the copy so that it matches and supports that headline and that everything feels like it's really focused and on theme. And then the last section here, it says can't miss features, tone detection, sentence clarification, and readability improvement. Now, these features do feel a little thrown in at the last minute. There's no call to action. And because I don't have this email, I don't know if these were clickable and they took me someplace. My thought is that they probably didn't. They're probably just telling you what Grammarly does for you. And in fact, now that I'm looking at this and reading this out loud, that's something else I would change. They're listing these as features, but they should be framing them as benefits. So improve the readability of your content. Make sure every single one of your sentences is as clear as it can be. It's not very clear. Make sure each of your sentences is clear. And then tone detection, always strike the right tone. More benefits driven, a little bit more human, a little bit more emotional. Now, the point I've made here, these features feel a little thrown in at the last minute. It's worth testing if the email performs better without this section, so that is a little bit more single-minded. The less that you can have in an email, the more people respond to it, the more that they will click and engage. I found that with my choice hacking newsletter. If I throw in 15 different links, the overall click-through rate actually goes down because people aren't going back to the email and saying, oh, let me try this next, let me try this next. They're basically going through and finding one click or link that interests them. They're clicking it and then they're gone from the email. So they're not going to come back and revisit this. Now, I don't have any data on this. I don't know if this email is performing spectacularly well, but I know any email that you send can probably do a little bit better. And that's why I would recommend, just kind of cutting off this bottom part, because really the email is about getting them to install either the most popular or these additional features to make sure that they've got Grammarly in as many places as they need. And that means that the utility and the value of the product goes up. So people are more likely to use it and then, recommend it to their friends or renew the subscription. A quick point on the psychology principle here. This idea of cognitive overload, if you ask people to do too much or think too hard, often they'll just what I call just like nope out. They'll just kind of see it and be overwhelmed and say, no thanks. That's it. A quick email psychology breakdown of this Grammarly welcome email. Some things that were working, some things that I would change, and a little bit of the psychology behind why. Now, if you found this interesting, I do have a free newsletter that goes out to over 8,000 people. It is called the Choice Hacking Newsletter, and it teaches you all about behavioral science and marketing psychology so that you can make marketing that is more engaging using the principles of how people actually think, feel, and behave. The link's down in the description. It is choicehacking.com/read. I'll see you in the next one.